Hello everyone and welcome to week 5. Learner communities and student contributed content will be the theme. This is another interesting theme that again you might not have expected, and I wanted to take just a minute to talk a little about why I think it's an important one. Certainly again I believe there's a moment in society when things have been changing technologically. Things have been changing in our experience of the internet and of how we interact with each other. I believe these kind of interactions are opening up new possible applications for learning in the classroom, especially in inquiry-related learning. Certainly they've been very important to my own research. I'll talk just a little bit about that today. So I hope you come away from this week with an appreciation of just how interesting and important the idea of student-contributed content can be, and maybe even thinking about new ways to help your classroom work collectively as a learning community. So to begin, many of you have probably heard the terminology Web 2.0. By now, that's actually a rather old term, but I think it's still an important one. It refers to a transition that happened around the year 2000, approximately, when the web transformed. I mean, the web was still new at that point, only 5 or 6 years old, but it transformed from an initial idea or conception as a large collection of resources that people posted with links. They called hyperlinks that would you could surf them. Not too long into the history of the web, people began to understand the potential opportunities for more transactional or social applications of the web. This included not only doing your online banking and purchasing books from Amazon, but also uploading and tagging content like YouTube or Flickr, and linking yourself to peers in social networks. So like Facebook, where now I post a new video and it goes out to all my friends and then to all their friends. Blogging became an interesting new development where we could publish and post our ideas and they would go out to small circles or large ones, get reblogged or reposted. Twitter came up about 2004 or 5, and it allowed people to send out little small blog posts, and these things changed the nature of the what we used the web for. So this became collectively referred to as Web 2.0. It has opened up many new opportunities for participating in the internet, and I believe that there are opportunities for applications for learning. Just again to mention a few of the kinds of tools and materials that have been connected to this Web 2 terminology. You see here on the slide content aggregators, so collecting photos, videos, links. Like Pinterest is an aggregator. It links different web pages and images under common themes. Knowledge resources like Wikipedia or Reddit, Stack Overflow, even Yelp are socially negotiated collections or reviews. Broadcasting and publishing is another one. So Twitter, WordPress, all of the support for the blogging community. Social networks like Facebook and LinkedIn have become a huge part of our lives in 21st century society. And finally, commerce and transactional communities like eBay, Craigslist, Amazon. These are all transforming the nature of the web and the nature of society. So indeed, many scholars have talked about the impact of Web 2.0 and the internet in general on our everyday lives. This includes the use of mobile and handheld devices, as we discussed last week, but essentially nearly every dimension of life has been affected. The commercial aspects, government, politics, our personal and family lives. Notably, though, it's also been noted by many that classrooms and curriculum still haven't seen an impact from these new ways of interacting. Again, like collaboration, like mobile learning, there's a major challenge in integrating these kinds of interactions into a curriculum meaningfully. So it's one thing to just add a wiki or a Google Doc. It's another thing to add that in such a way that students are really learning and learning at a deeper level. So this week we will hopefully talk about how that can happen. You'll see an example or two. You'll see an example from UTS of an interesting new mathematics lesson, and we'll come away from it, I hope, with new insight and ideas about how we can bring these elements into our own inquiry designs. I'm going to talk about a few of what I consider to be the opportunities for inquiry that come out of these Web 2 interactions. One of them is the aggregation of content, allowing our students to work as a classroom community to collect and build on one another's resources, to link, tagging with keywords, adding to Pinterest boards, YouTube channels, WordPress blogs. Another one is cooperative learning and knowledge building. That the new kinds of technologies we're looking at, Google Docs, wikis, Twitter, WordPress, can allow for the teacher to develop collaborative projects that include design projects and their use of peer critique. And hopefully you've seen me demonstrating some of that in the design of this blog. We have certainly tried to get all of you to upload resources and tag them and vote on them to offer critical review to one another's lesson designs. The third one is the social promotion and negotiation. So by voting, forwarding, retweeting, commenting, recommending, that these are new kinds of, let's say, pedagogical moves that could allow opportunities for inquiry design. To help us achieve these curriculum designs, there's a theoretical perspective that many have referred to as learning communities or knowledge communities. This is one where students and teacher work together in the classroom and actually identify as a community. They think of the purpose of the learning as advancing the community. Often students in the room are developing a kind of a knowledge base, a database of observations, photos, or any kind of media that they then see as an asset for their further inquiry. The students work, in individual and small groups. Also, they can work as the whole class together, but essentially they see this as a collective enterprise where we all collaborate and review, and then we all benefit from the sort of fruits of our collective labors. So I sometimes refer to this kind of curriculum as collective inquiry curriculum because it refers to designs that are actually thinking about the entire classroom as the unit of design. There's definitely a targeted content area, so you would start with thinking about how the whole class is going to progress on a specific topic or a specific skill, or some sort of media, depending on your domain. There's an emphasis on individual students in the classroom working autonomously, defining their own questions and methods, finding resources to meet those questions, and working with their classroom and their peers as a primary resource. Finally, an emphasis on community progress. Have we advanced as a community? Did maybe some ideas come from this group and some ideas come from this one? Maybe there's different specialist areas in the community. I actually consider this MOOC course to be essentially a learning community. We've grouped you together into SIG groups. We've tried hard to design activities that let you learn from one another, and discussion forums where you discuss with each other. So this is now a general approach that I follow in designing inquiry community. It's one where you as an individual feel that you're gaining through the activity, through the reflections and the interactions, but also that you're making a contribution to a wider set of peers, and moreover that you're gaining the benefit of all of the knowledge and contributions of those peers. So I'll talk through one example that came out of my research. This was some years ago. It was actually done at UTS with 10th grade biology teachers. These are teachers not even in our video cases, but there were 4 class sections taught by 2 teachers, and we had this idea that we'd love these 4 sections, of 102 students overall, to work together as a community, so that section 1 could build some contributions, and section 2 could take those and continue to work them, and section 3 would then gain the benefit of all of the previous work done by the other 2 sections and keep going. So we put our heads together, the teachers, myself, and some technology specialists, and we thought about using a wiki to do this. We were trying to find the right topic that fit well within the teacher's course, and they suggested the physiology of human disease. So this was a nice topic. It really fit well with the design for a wiki. We broke the kids into 3 specialist groups. So in each of the 4 sections, they counted off by 3s. 1, 2, 3. 1 was for respiratory, 2 was for circulatory, and 3 was for digestive diseases. We told them that they'd be specializing in that area, and that their job was to create a wiki of diseases in their body system area. So respiratory diseases would include emphysema and asthma. And we created a special support to help them do that, which were these wiki templates. So each disease in the wiki we thought would have specific features that included the causes, the symptoms, the connection to biological functions, the relationship to other disease systems. And the students were given complete freedom to create the disease, name the disease, to create a description, and fill in all of those headers. But the fact that we had those page headers really helped make sure that the content that was developed there was coherent and consistent with the learning goals that we had for the curriculum. So on the first day, the section number 1 of the class started to make wiki pages. The respiratory students, there were probably about 8 or 10 of them. They worked in pairs, and they created a new page for a new disease, named it, and then hopefully the disease name that they took wasn't taken by somebody else. And they got a certain amount of progress on making those pages, and then we're done for the day. Went home, and section 2 came in and took over and started to add new disease pages, but also to work and improve on the ones that had been started by section 1. By the time section 3 got hold of it, a lot of the diseases were taken, and there were some complaints, but the teacher helped them understand that this was about creating a really good set of wiki pages. There were, in the end, 23 of them produced for the 3 body systems, so about 8 per system, and these were very lengthy, some of them 2,000, 3,000 words, with images, with plenty of connections and resources at the bottom, edited typically 20 or 30 times by many different students. And then once we had this wiki complete, we were able to use it so as a resource for inquiry about human diseases, and to help the specialists in the circulatory system make connections to the respiratory and digestive diseases. So I'll walk you through how that worked. So you can see here one of the pages that's complete, or maybe at some level of completeness, for asthma, and the use of images there, and you can see the subheaders that we included. These, again, were collaboratively edited, so students in one section of the course took over from students the previous sections, and finally they all had some hand in making sure that as a respiratory group across the 4 sections they had produced an authoritative set of resources. Then, as I mentioned, we had this idea that they could see that wiki as a community resource. We had told them, hey, you better do a good job on these respiratory pages, because the circulatory and digestive groups are going to need them. And by the way, you're going to need their pages. So everyone should really work hard on this. What we asked the students to do, the next step, was to use the respiratory pages that their specialist groups had made, and to go through all of the diseases, not just the ones that you had worked on, but the other ones as well. And make sure you are very familiar with your area of expertise. And then to create 2 challenge cases. These are cases we told them to be creative. Here you see Snow White and the 7 Smokers is one, and they don't tell them what disease this is, but talk about the symptoms, talk about some of the connections or lifestyle behaviors that the afflicted person in this case had. So that was an inquiry task in itself, and students really enjoyed making these cases. What happened next, though, was we asked them to go solve 1 case each from the other 2 specialization areas. So circulatory students were on the hook for solving 1 respiratory and 1 digestive case. And they were to use the wiki again as a resource for doing this. So now the pages that they had, the other groups had made, became critical resources for students in solving those cases. In point of fact, they loved doing the case solution, and many of the kids went on to solve dozens of the cases just because they had so much fun doing it. The teachers were incredibly impressed by how much energy, creativity, engagement came out of this, as well the learning. And you'll see we actually did look at the final exam scores. This school happened to use a very similar exam from one year to the next, similar items, and we could essentially subtract out the parts of the final exam that weren't physiology, and we found a significant gain in the students' physiology scores in the year that we ran this study. So that was encouraging, and it says something that by developing one of these lessons that that engages your class as a whole, but also going across multiple sections of a course, you can actually increase engagement and increase learning too. That human disease lesson was done as the PhD study of Vanessa Peters, who was a student from University of Toronto, and we've included a book chapter that we wrote about that as one of the resources for this week. I want to end here today just by going over some of the approaches that I think could help curriculum designers create collective inquiry lessons and integrate those lessons into their courses. So the first one I'll mention here is like a classroom blog, just as an example. And a blog doesn't have to mean just writing. It can also mean images. So a Pinterest board, in essence, could be seen as a blog of some kind that was dedicated to a theme, and the teacher could create multiple Pinterest boards. WordPress is a very popular blog engine, and it has a setting that you can create a blog for a group of people, so they can all create entries and add them. Teacher could create a private version of that so that only the students in the class could see and make use of the blog entries. The next approach I'll mention is this idea of an organizational document or set of documents, pages that you create that include potentially links to subpages, subheaders on the documents that students see as essentially a shell that they have to fill in and complete. It's almost like a game or gamification of content creation. You can also use Google Drive, which is a new feature that Google has produced. It's actually shared folders that you can allow students to put photos, images, videos of their creation into. One interesting feature of this approach of using these sort of wiki spaces is that when you have completed the course, when you've finished and the students have populated that shell and created content, you can actually hand that off or pass that forward to next year's class and tell them this is something that your peers last year have built. I expect you to go further and build on what they left behind, maybe polish it or improve it. This isn't always possible, but it's a very interesting opportunity for the teacher to help the students feel that they are engaged in a kind of a living, dynamic curriculum, and that it's never the same content year to year. And finally, I just want to review an approach that many of you have probably heard of, and it goes hand in hand usually with the second organizational document approach, which is the jigsaw group design. Not necessarily jigsaw, but specialist group designs. I used that approach in the human disease lesson. We created 3 groups of kids that were specializing in respiratory, circulatory, digestive, a true jigsaw approach would actually then regroup the kids after they had created their specialist knowledge into new groups. In my case, it would be groups of 3, which each one with a member of the previous groups. So I would have 1 respiratory, 1 circulatory, and 1 digestive student in that group. You would then create an inquiry task for them that would essentially require the expertise that they had developed and engage them in sharing and enabling the other peers in the group to essentially get knowledge from one another. So that's my presentation of student-contributed content and collective inquiry learning communities. I hope you appreciated the opportunities there. I don't know if some of you are using these kind of methods in your own lesson design for this MOOC. It certainly is a new one that you could try to put in if you are looking for new approaches. Again, I've added some resources this week from researchers and theorists that I've appreciated. I've added one of my own papers as well. I hope you enjoy the next 2 videos, which are from the UTS school leaders talking about user contributed content, and the teacher video case that will give an example. So thanks again. Thanks for staying with us for now 5 weeks. I hope you're having a great summer, and we'll see you online.